I wanted to show you the latest from Dr. John Campbell because you know how they said you had to get vaccinated to protect other people? Well, now there's a new study that shows that that people who were vaccinated and unvaccinated. Well, I'm going to let him tell you. Watch this. This is stunning. The whole idea of you're doing this for other people kind of blown out of the water. Watch this.
Today's talk, Wednesday, the 18th of October. Now, I'm going to be presenting research from the medical school in Chicago today about the amount of SARS coronavirus 2 RNA that's shed during normal breathing. Now, it just seems quite incredible. This hasn't been done up to this point, especially when we consider some of the, shall we say, confident statements made by our medical, scientific and political leaders about how important it was to get vaccinated to prevent those around us. This casts a very critical light on that. So what this research is about is basically the first 8 days are the most infectious after initial infection. It doesn't tell us about infectivity before first symptoms, but it's the first 8 days after symptoms, an average of 80 viral particles per minute shed during the first 8 days. Then it drops off quite quickly. There's a lot of variation between individuals, but it seems that people that are sicker shed more virus, but that varies quite a lot. But the key thing is that there is no significant difference between the amount of viral particles shed by someone who has been vaccinated and the amount of viral particles shed by someone who has not been vaccinated. Now, if this is true, if this is substantiated by further research, that means there would be no scientific basis for saying that vaccination of one person protects another person. But you wouldn't quite guess that from some of the potential overstatement. Don't want to be too harsh on these people. That was said during the pandemic, which influenced our thinking really quite significantly. Let's just look at a few of them now as a walk down memory lane.
So now John Campbell, I'm very proud of this. I think he's been watching my show and he's going to do a little Jimmy Dore. Okay, I'm overstating it. But he's going to show you a bunch of videos of people saying the exact opposite of what this new paper says is the science. So watch this.
This is not about freedom or personal choice. It's about protecting yourself and those around you. The people you work with, the people you care about, the people you love. My job as president is to protect all Americans.
Well, Mr. Biden sounded pretty confident there. I'm not getting at Mr. Biden. I was looking for clips from other political leaders as well, but I couldn't find them. Maybe some of them have been deleted.
From our own country, but particularly from the experience in the UK, the vaccines we have do protect well against the Delta variant. So if ever there was a reason to get vaccinated, it's right now, because we're seeing this Delta variant double every 2 weeks. We're up to 20.6%. So we've got to get the job done. I mean, it's really unfortunate and somewhat puzzling when the data are right in front of you and you know exactly what you need to do to protect against these types of numbers, which you showed on the screen.
I love how he says the data is right in front of you. Remember they didn't want to release the data for 75 years? Remember how we found out that they didn't even test to see if the vaccine stopped transmission or contraction? It wasn't because people went through the data. It was because a member of the European Parliament asked a Pfizer executive if they did. And of course, the Pfizer executive laughed and said, no, we didn't have time to test for that. We didn't test for it. We were going at the speed of science, which is a completely made up turn. So let's hear what there's way more to this. Watch this.
Seem to be saying there that get vaccinated to keep the number of new cases down. That's my impression of what he said.
Our data from the CDC today suggests, that vaccinated people do not carry the virus, don't get sick, and that it's not just in the clinical trials, but it's also in real world data.
No, I want to be clear about what the CDC is saying and what the CDC is not saying. The CDC is saying they have concluded that fully vaccinated people are at a very, very low risk of getting COVID-19. Therefore, if you've been fully vaccinated, you no longer need to wear a mask. Let me repeat, if you are fully vaccinated, you no longer need to wear a mask. The safest thing for the country is for everyone to get vaccinated.
Joe Rogan, you may have heard about this, made comments about young people getting vaccinated. It's getting a lot of buzz. He said, if you're like 21 years old and you say to me, should I get vaccinated? I say no. If you're a healthy person and you're exercising all the time and you're young and you're eating well, I don't think you need to worry about this. Saying young, healthy people shouldn't get vaccinated. Just quickly, your response?
Well, that's incorrect, Savannah. And the reason why is that you're talking about yourself in a vacuum then. You're worried about yourself getting infected and likelihood that you're not going to get any symptoms. But you can get infected and will get infected if you put yourself at risk. And even if you don't have any symptoms, you are propagating the outbreak because it is likely that you, even if you have no symptoms, that you may inadvertently and innocently then infect someone else who might infect someone who really could have a problem with a severe outcome.
Yeah.
So he's making it sound like Joe Rogan was wrong about that, and that the vaccine would stop you from infecting other people. That's what he just said.
So if you want to only worry about yourself and not society, then that's okay. But if you're saying to yourself, even if I get infected, I could do damage to somebody else, even if I have no symptoms at all. And that's the reason why you've got to be careful and get vaccinated.
Yeah. So you say young, healthy people should get vaccinated.
Absolutely.
All right.
Absolutely.
So you see how they couched it. They couched it like, you don't want to be selfish. You don't want to be selfish. Because if you don't get vaccinated, you're hurting someone else. Well, what we always said was, well, why doesn't that someone else get vaccinated? Why does that other person need me to take a vaccine for their vaccine to work? So these are the kind of nonsensical statements that we couldn't make sense of. And the reason why you can't make sense of it is because they don't make sense. Now, let's remember that the vaccine's super safe and effective. And it does slow the transmission and contraction. It'll keep you out of the hospital. It'll keep you from getting seriously ill or dead. So that's why it's fantastic. Kurt and I eat our boosters for breakfast every day. And so here, now Dr. John's going to break it down for you.
Let's get straight down to the detail of this paper now. Now, it's a simple device that you breathe in and out of. It's remarkably simple. The most clever inventions often are simple, and I'll be showing you the details of it later. But it's testing for the amount of RNA, the SARS coronavirus 2 RNA shed during normal breathing. Now, this is a preprint paper from the University of Chicago. But it looks pretty good to me. I've read through it, obviously. This is the paper here. Quantity of SARS coronavirus 2 RNA copies exhaled per minute during natural breathing. This is the key thing, during natural breathing. Of course, natural breathing is what happens during the natural situation. This is so obvious. Why hasn't this been studied before? It's really quite.
I wonder why it hasn't been studied before. I have a feeling it might have been studied before, and then they maybe didn't like what they found, and maybe they didn't share it. That's what I maybe think. But I can't be super sure. That's just a super big guess.
Now, the vaccinated and unvaccinated individuals exhaled similar levels of SARS coronavirus 2 RNA. This is from the paper. We found that vaccinated and unvaccinated participants inhaled similar numbers of SARS coronavirus 2 RNA copies. And I'll be giving you the numbers in a minute, but there's no significant difference between the two. In fact, I'll give you them now. Viral RNA levels in vaccinated individuals on days 1 to 16 ranged from, this is vaccinated people, remember, 0 to 549 exhaled copies per minute. So if you want to watch he's going to go through the study. It's going to take about 8 minutes, and it's interesting. So if you want to watch that, go right ahead. But you already know the important parts already. That according to this paper, vaccinated, unvaccinated people shedding the same amount. So it seems like all that stuff they said about it, about you doing that to protect other people, again, you have to get a vaccine to make someone else's work or something like that. That's what it sounds like. I don't know. That's what they mean. But on top of that, now, according to this paper, it turns out vaccinated, unvaccinated, shedding the same amount. So that's the key findings to take away here. But he's going to go into a little bit more detail for you. So if you like detail, here it comes. Very great deal of variation between individuals, 0 to 549 per minute. So that's in vaccinated. Now, in people that were unvaccinated, the numbers were higher, 0 to 876. But the whole point about science is it has to be significant. This is not a significant result. So to be significant, P would have to equal 0.05 or less. So it's nowhere near significant, actually. So no significant difference between the two. And any difference there would be pretty short-lived anyway, because we know that the immune protection from these vaccines is relatively short. Hence, boosters are being advised by people like the CDC, for example, at the moment. So no significant difference. So that's really quite interesting. Yes, we need a bigger study. Would it become significant with larger numbers? In a sense, the time to find this is past now. we could do it with Omicron now because people are still getting infected with Omicron, but we couldn't do it with the previous variants. So, given that hard science, it looks like the individuals we looked at there could potentially be overstating. Let's just quickly look through the rest of this paper. It is pretty interesting. So levels of viral shedding on breath did not differ between the variants very much. So early variants, like the Wuhan variant early on, I think that probably includes the Alpha variant, 0 to 876 per minute. Delta, 0 to 549. Omicron, this is surprising. Omicron was actually lower, 264 copies exhaled per minute. So the reason that Omicron is so much more infectious, presumably, is because the Omicron binds much more effectively into the ACE2 receptor site rather than being larger numbers of particles actually exhaled, although we would need a larger study to be sure of that. But of course, thankfully, the Wuhan variety and the Alpha and Delta varieties no longer exist. They've been replaced by the Omicron varieties. Peak levels of shedding on the breath were similar across variants. So this is the amount. There's actually a graph here. So this is the amount that was actually shed across variants. These are the participants, and they've arranged them into increasing order. But we see that the average line there was pretty similar. The red there is pre-Delta, the grey is Delta, and the blue is Omicron. So we see fairly similar levels of virus being shed between the different variants. In fact, while I'm here, I'll just show you the simple machine they use. It's incredibly clever. So it's just a syringe, and you put this. I guess you put this in the fridge. This cold wrap round about it like that, and that causes the condensation because it's cold around the outside. And then you just collect it. So you breathe in and out normally. The condensed particles are in there, and then you can check those with real-time quantitative polymerase chain reaction checks. So simple, and yet they didn't think of it till these clever people in Chicago worked it out. So congratulations on designing something so simple and, of course, cheap. Background here, SARS coronavirus 2 is spread through exhaled breath of infected individuals. Of course, we know this. How much virus an individual is exhaling during normal breathing? We didn't know that before this. Now we do over the course of their infection. So this is the new information that's been found out here. Previous studies focused on viral load inside the respiratory tract, but not in the breath. So the viral load inside the respiratory tract could potentially tell you how ill people got, or could be a factor, but it doesn't tell you how transmissible they would be. That's the big thing that this study adds. So COVID-19 patients, they use real-time quantitative PCR, so they could actually work out the number of RNA copies, and of course an RNA copy represents one viral particle. Didn't decrease significantly from day 8, so we see that people are pretty infectious from day 8. Now, frustratingly, this doesn't tell us how infectious people were before they became symptomatic. And I must say that is not clear in my mind. I've read contradictory evidence on that recently. But it does tell us that people are very infectious from first symptoms all the way through to day 8. Then it drops off really quite significantly, but they still excrete a little bit of virus up to day 20, but almost certainly not enough to be actually infective after day 8. That's called the inoculum, the amount of virus that someone will get in to actually cause a new infection in an individual. And I know I've been exposed to huge amounts of SARS coronavirus 2 just in the past few months and haven't tested positive and have had no symptoms. Strange. Anyway, COVID positive participants exhaled an average of 80 viral particles per minute during the first 8 days of infection, but it varied a lot between individuals, as you would expect, really. Some were over 800 in a minute. After day 8, steep drop off to levels nearing the limits of detection. So a little bit that could just about detect up to day 20. You can still detect it with higher thresholds, of course, on the PCR test, but that can become spurious if we do it too much. Levels of exhaled viral RNA increased with self-rated symptom severity, although there was a lot of individual variation. So there was a tendency for people who were more symptomatic to produce more virus, but there was a lot of variation between individuals there, as we would expect, because of the large amount of comorbidities between individuals. I thought that was quite interesting. And crucially, here we see levels of exhaled viral RNA did not differ across sex significantly across age. So young and old exhale much the same amount. Male and female, much the same amount. Time of day, much the same amount, didn't make much difference. Vaccination status, not significantly different. And there's all the YouTube clips to the bits I've shown you there. So, this is simple science, but hard science. And it just wasn't done up till this point. So I'll leave that with you as a point of reflection. Now, I advertised these books a few weeks ago, completely free, I add, for free download PDF. I wrote these during the last years of being a full-time lecturer. So this one is physiology, or the body's normal function. So you can download it, and the quality when you download it on the PDFs. It is excellent. So you can download it, put it into your own notes, color in the pictures, do whatever you like. That one's all normal disease function. And this one's all abnormal disease, or abnormal function. So normal physiology, abnormal pathophysiology. And this goes through all the different diseases. So just to give you an inkling there, there's all the different, so we've got nature and etiology, cause of disease, neoplasm, infectious disease, disorders of immunity, disorders of arteries, disorders of veins, shock, hemorrhage, cardiac disorders. It goes on. Covers all the basic physiology, really, that anyone who wants to take.
So there he's just telling you how to get his books. So
For free? What a grifter.
what a grifter. So, and it's amazing how people, they don't actually, when people try to contradict Dr. John Campbell, they don't contradict his science. They go after his credentials. They try to discredit him as a person. He's not a real doctor.
Is that right? I watched a guy try to discredit him. This was a while ago. But he goes, no, he's impeccable. His reference. The guy started with that. He didn't go at him. And then he goes, it turns out he worked for one of these companies, the guy who's making the video.
Uh-huh.
But a guy working for them making that kind of video couldn't say his reputation is bad.
Yeah.
So now they're saying he himself.
He's had an excellent reputation his whole career. He's a doctor. They go, well, he's not a doctor. He's a nurse. So but he obviously he has a PhD and he teaches nurses how to do nursing. He writes medical journals, and he has been a medical lecturer, and he's had an impeccable reputation. And so that's what they try to do. They try to. I've seen people always try to go, well, he's not a doctor. He's a nurse. Again, can you talk about? I'm a Jagoff YouTuber. Who are you? Who are the person trying to discredit that guy knows way less than he does.
Wait. He's not. But his name's Dr. John Campbell. He's a PhD. That's a doctorate.
Yeah.
So that's, I don't know. Like, I think you're still a doctor. If you're not, he's not the
people with PhDs are called doctors.
Yeah, so it's weird to be like, he's a nurse. I thought he's a teacher.
Yeah, and he is, and he teaches nursing. He teaches people how to do nursing.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that's what he did. I think he might be retired.
So they're
now.
removing his actual doctorate to slander him.
To slander him. Yeah. So anyway, so that's, and I might have used the wrong term when I said shed. So it's exhaled. So I just want to correct myself. So that's quite a study. Contradicts all those videos that he played. And or it seemingly does. And so again, I'll just say it one more time that I can forgive all the people who got the COVID wrong and believed the propaganda. I can forgive them. I believed the propaganda until I got vaccine injured, and then I looked into it, and then I found out they were lying about everything. Everything, not little things. They were lying about, well, like where the virus came from. They were lying about who funded the virus. They were lying about contraction, transmission, herd immunity, natural immunity, masks. There wasn't anything that they didn't lie about. But of course, the vaccine is safe and effective, and it.
You still have to say that?
It'll keep you. It slows the spread.
I mean, I just want to say it.
I want to say it.
I wouldn't say it because I'm being forced.
No, I'm not being forced. I enjoy saying it.
Mostly I just think about Israel now, so I don't even.
Me too. It is super safe and effective, and it'll slow the spread and keep you from getting it. And it'll also keep you from getting out of the hospital. It won't, you won't get hospitalized and you won't get dead from the virus. So it's a fantastic vaccine. I love it. But we're having isn't it amazing? It took 3 years to get that simple of a study. To see how much if a vaccinated and an unvaccinated people exhaled the same amount in normal breathing. Isn't that amazing? It took this long to get that study. I wonder why they didn't want to do that study. I wonder why it took. I wonder why Pfizer didn't do that study or Moderna. I wonder why it took the University of Chicago. Who knows? And I wonder why this study wasn't already suppressed. That's interesting.
Well, nobody cares now.
I guess nobody cares now.
The reason is nobody cares. Like, why are you even still talking
Why
about
am I even still talking about it?
That's how it works.
Why are you still talking about it? People still talk about Pearl Harbor.
Well, okay, yeah, 100 years from
Yeah.
as soon as we get a good set, whatever the amount of time of locking the info in the vault is, like 70 years or whatever, that's when it's cool.
Yeah. Like they wanted to keep the vaccine trial data hidden for 75 years. And just like they want to keep Seth Rich's laptop hidden for 60 years.
Really?
Yes, we already talked about it twice on the
Oh,
show.
I get. There's so many things hidden for 60 years or 75 years. I confuse them. There's of course the JFK stuff.
That's right. And the JFK, even Trump wouldn't release that stuff, even though he promised to.
Boy, it must have been totally innocuous. Even Trump was like, I'm not putting this out.
Yep.
That guy wanted to ruin them and he wouldn't put it out.
So that's quite a study. Again, I can forgive my friends for getting it wrong, but they will never forgive me for getting it right. And I got it right at every step of the way. You know why? Because I went right to the source. I went to Dr. Robert Malone, the guy who is credited with the invention of the mRNA vaccine technology. Not the COVID-19 vaccine, but the platform that is built on. He was the first one to figure it out.
It's not about any one guy. It's about trusting the establishment more than ever.
That's all they did was, people who claimed to be skeptical of government, people who claim to be skeptical of big pharma, people who claim to be skeptical of government conspiracies and secrets, 100% embrace the establishment narrative without skepticism, without question, and shamed you if you did have healthy skepticism. They shamed me, still do it. And they'll never admit they were wrong, and they'll never forgive me for getting it right. And that's just what I have to live with, I guess.
If they only did that to other people in entertainment, that would be one thing. There are people who don't even work in entertainment, they were doing it too.
They were doing it to that's right. Hey, come see us doing a live stand-up show in Bloomington, Illinois, Indianapolis, Levittown, New York, Red Bank, New Jersey, Wilmington, Delaware, Covina, California, Burbank, California, Oxnard, California, Venice, California, and Palmdale, California. Go to jimmydore.com for a link for tickets.